What's up, guys? So, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, this is going to be another rant video by me. I do make one of these like every 2 to 3 days, but this one's valid, I promise. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you do enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. I want to get to my access to my content creator role at a certain point, so I can promote my content and then also talk to other content creators and see what they have to talk about in regards to the current state of the game. And that's kind of what this whole video is about. But I just kind of wanted to talk about the current state of the game with the animations and the different ways that they have kind of taken away from their original sort of style. And I know the developers have like their creative freedom with this stuff, but a lot of the new animations, for example, Rising Wind, have been pretty bad for the game. Currently, Rising Wind, well, for one, goes through block, right? Half the time, right? I'll put a clip of it up on screen going straight through my block when I was playing Chime the other day. I mean, Blood is still absolutely broken. There's been no changes to that at all. So that's still really annoying to deal with. Nobody likes fighting Blood. Blood is horrible and super annoying to fight. Jet Striker, like Fake Strike, I have it right here. Still absolutely broken. I don't even think that this move is ever going to get fixed. Especially on light. It's not so good on heavy and medium, but it's really, really broken on light. You basically are guaranteed damage if you do it off of a parry. Unless your opponent is like really good. Both Blood Orb and Blood Cyclone are still incredibly overpowered. Crimson Rain, they're all unreactable essentially with the speed they come out at. Especially if you have an insignia, just forget about ever trying to react to one of these things. But really, my biggest problem, right, isn't actually Blood right now. It's Thunder, and really just Thunder and Ice are almost as strong, if not stronger than Blood at a higher level due to the guard breaks. Blood doesn't have any guard breaks, which makes it relatively more balanced, although it is still extremely annoying to fight. Nobody enjoys fighting Blood users. Blood is super strong, but it's not as annoying to fight as, say, a Thunder, like a Storm's Eye, just a Storm's Eye. A Storm's Eye reinforced armor. You can get just Jet Striker on that. You can get whatever oath you want. You can get Dawnwalker, whatever. But the biggest problem with that is that Storm's Eye and that stuff, all of it has, the entirety of medium right now is just super overpowered. Just in general, medium is super overpowered. And I mean, I don't know. It feels like the base thing should be well balanced. And for the first time in a while, light is the worst class, because medium has so many techs with it and so much. Just like you can do so much with medium. Nobody wants to play on a light. Like Attunementless Fist is now worse than Attunementless, or not Attunementless. Attunementless Fist is now worse than like any Thunder build. Thunder Light is pretty much unplayable. I'd never play that. Thunder Heavy, Bolt Crusher. Nobody plays anything else. Because why? People on Thunder Medium only play Storm's Eye and Warden's Ceremonial Sword, which is really bad for the build diversity, right? Because you have an entire attunement that's dominated by the 2 legendary weapons and the 1 regular other off meta medium weapon. Occasionally you'll see Kyrs blades on there, but I'm not gonna lie, I have not seen a Kyrs blade on a Thunder medium for quite some time now. It's mainly Warden Ceremonial Sword or Storm's Eye, which, you know, for an entire attunement to be dominated by 3 weapons, it's not a good look. Like for Ice, at the very least, right, which is the next in line for being the strongest attunement, I'd say the Ice is just slightly below Thunder. You still have daggers, you have heavy, you have katanas, you have all sorts of stuff. You can use every weapon type on Ice. Fist, dagger, all those both work. I mean, really, just like, why am I blanking on the other? Oh yeah, rapiers. Rapiers on ice are good. I mean, medium weapons like swords, medium swords are good on ice. Spears are good on ice. The legendary weapon isn't too dominant. Gran is not really the prime choice. Neither of the legendary weapons for ice heavy are the prime choice for ice heavy. Usually that's like Darksteel Greatsword or something, which means the ice is more of a balanced attunement, because you don't see it being dominated by 3 weapons. You can use whatever you want on it. And but I feel like I'm kind of getting off track here. Of course, Thunder's broken and all that, but the biggest problem is the new animations for every single mantra are just, they're over the top. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I don't know if you've seen, I know all of you have definitely seen the Rising Wind rework, but compare the new Rising Wind rework to the old one. Here, I'll put it up on screen. All right. New Rising Wind rework to the old one. The new Rising Wind rework has so much more animation and particles, and it's literally more, it feels more of a cutscene than the old Rising Wind, because you could at least vent out of the old Rising Wind. I don't even think you could vent out of the current Rising Wind, as well as the fact that if they just use whatever mantra they want, they get basically, it's true. If you use Rising Wind into Judgment, it's a true combo. Now, like Rising Wind, you don't even need an insignia gem on it, I don't think. You can just go Rising Wind and then use Judgment while they're on the floor and they're unable to dodge it, or parry it, or block it. All options. If you get hit by Rising Wind, you are guaranteed to lose around a bar, because Judgment does like absurd amounts of damage. I mean, think of things like the oaths, right? All the recent oaths have felt really terrible to play against, right? This isn't just me. I mean, what, the last 3 oaths were on release, were incredibly either underpowered. I mean, Chain Warden on release is underpowered, so they compensated it by making it do about a metric fuck ton of damage. They've only recently nerfed it down to a reasonable degree in these past couple of like weeks, where you can no longer move stack and one-shot people with half their health being gone by Chain Warden. It's like, yeah, that's a great update, guys. We fixed the broken shit we added last week. You guys should be so happy. We're patching out the bugs, right? And then they add like 30 new bugs and like 4 overpower and like an overpowered legendary weapon. Or the legendary weapon is complete ass. Like this week's slop legendary weapon wasn't very good. And I think that's for the best, but okay, they just, it doesn't mean anything, bro. Like legendary doesn't mean anything anymore. Like if you used to be able to get like a curved blade of winds and stuff, and granted I didn't play during that time and I didn't really, so I don't know the true experience of that, but it would be pretty miserable to get a legendary weapon from what I've heard. But that means it was rare. You go into Diluvian for 5 minutes and you have 32 curved blades of winds. Like, but actually before Diluvian, right? Before Diluvian came out, the legendary weapons were still rare, because you still have to do like hell modes and all sorts of stuff. Diluvian ruined that, and I mean, Diluvian is here to stay. Even though it's like complete slop, it is not exactly a great, it's like the epitome of the weekly slop fest that has become this game. But Diluvian, it's an alright game mode. I mean, it's not anything super fun, but it gives you a way to get the relics and get the weapons that you would normally like have to do other bosses. But really, it's just become, you can't do it without a PvE cheese build. You know, I say PvE cheese build, but it's really just a build specifically meant to kill monsters. Those builds do not overlap at all with PvP builds, because if you try and take a PvP build into Diluvian, you'll get wiped, and if you take a PvE build into PvP, you're going to get destroyed. But really, I feel like the biggest problem, once again, I'm looping back to it, is just the game direction that they've taken. Every single new weapon animation, right, that they've added. I don't know if I don't really want to steal someone else's content. I don't know if the wiki has like a picture of the crit, but it looks really reminiscent of the rockmaller crit, which, you know, another brain rot weekly weapon. They just gave that thing more damage than Hivewood's Hubris on release, and then they also made it knockdown crit and confirm either an M1 or an uppercut or whatever the hell you wanted to do. You could hit him with like literally anything in the game minus maybe an Eclipse kick or a Sky Shatter kick. You would hit them with literally anything in the game bar an Eclipse kick. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily great game design. This whole yap session is gonna have to be edited down heavily, I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. I mean, I feel like the biggest problem currently plaguing this game is the fact that the developers don't listen to whatever testers they have. Nobody tests the stuff that the developers make, and they just say, oh, we reworked Rising Wind. Well, nobody tested this, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And then, like, I'm glad they reworked, like, Hailbreaker. Let's take a look at Hailbreaker. Does that look like Deepwoken to you? Have y'all seen the Hailbreaker crit? It doesn't even look like it's from this game. It looks like it's from Type Soul. And I mean, that one guy who comments on Type Soul is better in the comments. Really be loving that. But, I don't know. Like, why are we adding all this random anime slop into the game? Like, Hailbreaker is not anybody's favorite weapon. It's not even a good weapon. It's just something they added. But it's not like it really affects the game at all because nobody plays it. I haven't seen a singular soul use the Hailbreaker in, like, any amount of time because it does 0 damage and is not very good. They just introduce a bunch of random weapons, right, that aren't any good, and then nobody plays them because they're horrible, and they just play Storm's Eye and Bolt Crusher, which, I mean, sure, Bolt Crusher was one of those weapons, but my biggest question is, why do the devs feel like every legendary weapon needs 2 crits? Like, why do the devs feel as if every single new thing, right, needs to have at least, what the fuck? What is going on over there? That is crazy. What? Hold up. Oh, come on. Do we really need to have the Legion gun on me? Whatever. But really, I don't know. Every weekend or every week there's a slop. Actually, it is the weekend because they've started updating at 7 a.m. or 7 in the following morning on Saturday morning. That's the next. I guarantee that's when the next update is gonna drop, guys. Saturday at 7 a.m. because they've been getting later and later each night. Like, I'm pretty sure either the update prior to the last one came out at like 1 my time, and I am in California, so I am like, it was literally like 3 in some places. They're even later than that. In North America is as well. So it's not like this is. I'm pretty sure the devs actually don't make the updates. They wake up the morning on Friday morning, or like, no, probably Friday afternoon. They sleep in. They're like, oh shoot, we forgot to do the Deepwoken update. Better code this in 5 minutes before the players get angry, and then they just make all the stuff on the same day. Low key, I feel like if they handled all the game direction to ChatGPT, they would make better ChatGPT would make better balancing decisions than the developers currently are. And I know they have testers. It's just they don't listen to them. I'm sure the testers have told them multiple times that this is not an acceptable way to have your game be. Also, what the fuck? These are still everywhere. Yeah, and every single update, they just introduce bugs. Like, how did this happen? I go into the Startup Valley talking about how buggy the game is, and the bug just like, and I don't even want to talk to them because I'm pretty sure if I talk to them, it'll permanently brick me. Hold up, you know what? I'll do it. I'll talk to them a few times, and then I'll get hit with But where's the reworks on the mobs that we were promised? Like, Kaidos still hasn't been reworked from almost like 2 years ago at this point. Is it actually 2 years at this point? Because I could have sworn they promised to rework Kaido before verse 2. Like, they said that they were planning a rework for Kaido before verse 2, and Kaido has still not been reworked, and it has been like a very long like and I mean, sure, Deepwoken, right? I'm guessing it's a hard game to code, but there's no reason for players to, or like for it to take this many when they can add a new legendary weapon every week. But instead of reworking the boss everybody hates and is a giant waste of literally everyone's time, they're like, nah, let's instead of doing that, right, guys, let's add Fractithine, a new weapon from the Void Sea that ruins the lore even more than it already doesn't exist. The lore, for one, I've given up on the lore. I don't even think it exists anymore. There's all sorts of random stuff that they just add. And they're like, yeah, guys, this fits into the story because this is my OC's weapon. So we're gonna have that be in the game instead of adding stuff that actually is cool or makes sense. Like, what was the latest slop? Like, or the second latest slop? It was like some, oh yeah, the Ignition Union has added some mythical diver weapon with tech because it looked cool. It's the end all. I mean, the devs have creative freedom, and I get they have creative freedom, but why does the weapons crit look straight out of like JJK or My Hero Academia or some crap? It doesn't seem like it's that hard to add a unique critical like grand crit without making it like super particly, because you know what I mean. Look, like if you look at the Hailbreaker's crit, there's an insane amount of particles compared to like the older grand crit, which I think the grand crit still looks fantastic. It makes sense for the weapon, and it has a cool sort of like aura around it and stuff like that. Whereas with the Hailbreaker crit, it just looks like a bunch of particles. They put particles everywhere, and every single week, new legendary weapon. Like, why haven't they added a normal weapon? Like, what's so bad about adding new like base weapons with just like different swing speeds and different maybe some unique criticals, even though they're not legendary, they're base weapons and they don't require legendary status, because you can just put one crit and you can just like have like katanas have their own unique crit. So what's so hard about adding other swords with other unique criticals? It doesn't make sense. It can't possibly be that important to add a new particle heavy legendary weapon every single week instead of adding like 1 to 2, right? Instead of maybe adding that one particle heavy legendary weapon, why don't they just add like 2 non-particle heavy legendary weapons with just like simple attacks, right? I guess that could be hard, but like think about what they did with the Hollowtide weapons. All of those have unique critical attacks, and none of the unique critical attacks are like that intensive. Like they're not particle rich like the Hailbreaker. They're not insanely flashy like Fractithine, or they don't have any unique gimmicks or anything. It's just the weapon critical, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think that it's great to just be adding what's essentially anime slop each time you go to like make it. And I mean, every time you go to make a weapon, right? You don't need to add something from your favorite anime. You don't. You could just be adding like, I don't know, just like add a normal just normal attacks. Like what's wrong with that? You could just do like an extra powerful slash as one of them with this little aura around it. That would be a fine crit for like a heavy weapon, like a strong vertical down slash as a critical. But instead of doing that, you know what we need? You know what we need, guys? We need to have a giant air blast backwards with 2 separate criticals, and have you be able to pop Bonkai in the middle of the fight. In the middle of a fight. Yeah, because that's what we need, guys. We need you to be able to pop Bonkai in the middle of a fight. We don't need anything like that. We need you to stab yourself in the middle of a fight and turn into Bonkai and 360 no scope your opponent with a ultra particle accelerator bomb the size of the Empire State Building. That's what we need, guys. So as like the part of this video is just completely kind of incoherent, I'm gonna just try and summarize what I'm saying here. Let's just go through it pretty quickly. My thoughts on the current balancing of the game and why kind of K1 is taking this game in a negative direction, right? This is just like an overall summary of like the kind of points that I wanted to touch on in this video. So my biggest problem with the current state of the game is everything, for one, does either insane amounts of damage really quickly, or everyone is extremely tanky for no reason. So some of the fights, right, that you go to can't help but go to overtime, even if you're like actively only like W keying your opponent as hard as you can, but you don't have a guard break. They will literally just hold block and hold S, and even if you because they're purely focused on defense, you'll never get low, but the game will take 5 minutes regardless, because you'll have to wait till zone closes in Chime, and that's horrible. I mean, that's in Chime. Of course that's gonna suck in Chime, but let's talk about the overworld. Surely the overworld would be better with all like the unique things that have been like gotten rid of in Chime because they're too overpowered. Oh wait, the overworld is literally a worse place than Chime, because people use Salt Chemist and use assassination builds to take 90% of your HP in 10 seconds. I mean, and I guess, right, I kind of advocated for not doing the nerfing of damage modifier caps, but something needs to be done about the 2-bar metric or like size of the Empire State Building shadow guns that happen in ganks. I know this isn't just me, but I have been hit by a shadow gun, right? I did not see coming, and I just lose a bar. I mean, it doesn't do that much damage a lot of the time. It does like a third of or it does like a 2/4 of a bar, but like that's still so bad. Why is that even in the game? You have plenty of options for how to like balance your game, developers, but instead of actually just nerfing Shadowgun, right, which is the root of the problem. The root of the problem is multiplication spark. Shadowgun can be size modified to an insane degree that makes it really, really strong. Just tone down the size modifiers on that specific module, because that seems to be what people are talking about when they're complaining. It doesn't necessarily mean that the entirety of the module modification needs to be heavily reduced or heavily nerfed. Because take Blood, for example. Blood requires 0 mantra modification and is still incredibly strong. And while we're on this topic, let's talk about Blood. Blood is insanely overpowered for no reason. Blood has all sorts of basically just instant attacks. Like, I don't know how else to describe them. They're literally instant. They move. Each, like, attacks take tenths of a second to come out and hit you. What are you supposed to do about that? Like, really, what are you supposed to do about that? Because when you get hit by a Blood like Scarlet Cyclone or something, you lose like 1.5 bars of your blood. And I don't think that Blood is a great way to make this thing function, right? To make this attunement function. Because unlike, for example, armor, Blood is something that if you run out of it, you will die. And I mean, to a lesser degree, that's also the same. It's the same deal with armor. If you don't have your armor, you're going to get destroyed. But it's not quite as bad as if you run out of blood, you lose your food and water. If your opponent is on blood and runs gluttony, right, and you don't have any food or water, right, and you don't have any blood, you lose your entire health bar down to 0% in like 5 seconds. And that's just not well thought out. You can kill someone off blood before you can kill them from actually like hitting them with blood launches, depending on their like skill and their ability to parry your blood launches. Because like 2 Scarlet Cyclones drains like 3 bars of your opponent's like it drains, like landing 2 full Scarlet Cyclones with the triple and reversal will take roughly 4 bars of your opponent's blood, and it doesn't even do that much damage. So if they just fuck up, get hit by something like a blood block break and stuff, which albeit I will say that it isn't very common to land that, it will still take an insane amount of their like blood bar, and then they just lose because they got hit with enough blood launches to make them just die. And it's worse in ganks too. This is like abated in Chime of Conflict, right? Which would mean Chime of Conflict, well, that's like a closed thing. You don't necessarily need to worry about running out of blood. Because even if you do run out of blood, it's nothing's really gonna happen. You're not gonna have any really adverse side effects from running out of blood. There's nothing terrible is gonna happen to you because you ran out of blood in Chime. At worst, you lose some ELA. In the overworld, you're actually liable to just die and drown, and then you have to deal with all that because of a bullshit mechanic that takes away your ability to do anything. Like, when you're fighting on, like, NLK, that's the only time you should run out of blood. If you're playing on an NLK build without cauterized wounds and without alloy blood, that's when you should run out of blood. That would be fair, right? Because that's the downside of No Life King. It gives you regeneration in exchange for blood loss. But with the current direction, with K1's genius planning, right, and how every single blood move is nearly instant and unreactable, it just sucks all of the blood out of your opponent, and then they just died from food. They died from a lack of food, not anything that requires any amount of skill. And then let's compare the new animations to the old animations. And really, this is a problem that goes as far back as like Chain Warden and Deep Spindle and Pyre Keeper. Pyre Keeper was the beginning of the end, or so to speak, for this game. I don't think that's necessarily going to die. If the devs can get their act together and make the game good, like make it less anime sloppish, then I'm sure the game will be much better. But I think the devs are all currently working on cursed gear, and that's where all the testers are. I'm sure you've seen that one screenshot where it's like 100 players on cursed gear. That's why nothing gets tested, most likely. And I say this most likely because I don't have access to any content creator stuff, and I'm not able to talk to the devs. So if y'all could get me to 3,000 subscribers, that's my next goal. Every little subscription helps, and it'd be awesome. It'd be awesome if I could get to 3K and get that. And yeah. But anyway, every single animation that they've added in the past couple of like months, actually. Chain Warden, think about the oaths, right? Chain Warden. It might not it's not super visual clutter, but it's overpowered. Or it was overpowered. Like after the first like 2 weeks, it launched underpowered, and then very quickly they buffed it and then made it basically the best oath in the game, and that you couldn't even fight it. And even now, it doesn't feel good to play against because it removes your ability to move. It feels like a more extreme version of chilling, which is an enchant that requires you to hit multiple times. You get that effect for landing one mantra. And mind you, it's not even that hard to keep the chain on them, as long as you don't use Rupture, right? Which, by the way, does like 95 true damage from the chain attached, restrained chain combo, right? Does like 95 damage, which is the most true damage of every oath in the entire game. Like, I don't know and I mean, it's gotten nerfed recently. You used to be able to move stack with it, which was super dumb. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. But the biggest problem, right, with the current state of the game, I mean, is those animations. And think about it, Blade Harper 2, no, it's not just like Chain Warden. Blade Harper, super animation intensive. You have like Bonkai. What is it? You literally do Bonkai from Type Soul to obtain the oath. Like, I'm talking about the actual minigame itself is literally just the Bonkai fight from Type Soul 3 times. They didn't even try. Like, I don't know who developed Blade Harper. I never paid attention, but that's really bad. And then same with all the blood moves, right? I'm here with a blood thing. The simplest move in the game in here is Blood Orb, and it also is the most broken move, right? The simplest move on Blood Orb is, or on Blood is Blood Orb, and that's because it simply throws a blood forward. But even at just throwing a blood forward, there's like 10 different particles attached to it. Compare that to like the simplest move on Gale Lunge, very obviously the simplest move, maybe even in the entire game. Or Thunder Kick, which is also a very simple move. You move your leg back and you kick. Blood Orb, right? Blood Orb. You pitch your hand back. You throw it forward. You send out a red projectile. Your entire body glows red, and you leave a puddle of blood on the floor. Maybe it's Blood Edge, but Blood Edge is just as complicated with just as many animations. Compare it to Gale Lunge, where you literally put your sword forward and then move forward with a sound. Sure, it might reflect the increasing skill of the developers and their ability to make flashy animations. But I don't know about you, but in a reaction-based game, I'd rather have simple animations that convey what is happening on my screen than have these flashy animations that make it look like a whole mess is appearing on your damn screen. I mean, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that. Because I don't like the direction that a lot of this stuff is headed. And I mean, I'm screaming into the void here. Of course I am. I'm a YouTuber. Nobody listens to us. Unless you're Agamatsu. Lots of people listen to Agamatsu. A lot of the devs listen to Agamatsu. But that's because he's literally Agamatsu. So, he's John Deepwoken. Kind of. But he's a very trusted and respected. So that makes sense. But really, this video isn't necessarily to get hate on K1, even though I don't agree with a lot of the things he's done. I'm sure he's a good developer and he's a good person, maybe. I haven't talked to him. But it seems to be like the game direction is going more towards anime and less towards an original content. And I feel like the devs are realizing this, and that's why they've quickly made Cursed Gear, which I think is what it's called, to kind of replace Deepwoken. And I maybe it'll go the same way as, I don't know if you guys know YBA, when the developer of YBA tried to do that and made the shitty Battlegrounds game, and it failed horrendously, and then he had to run back to YBA. I'm not saying that I hope that happens, but like, it could be a possibility. Could be a possibility. I wouldn't say that would be the worst thing to happen. That's certainly a thing that could happen. That would be a thing that would happen. I don't really have that much else to say. If y'all have any other things and any other opinions on this stuff, I'd love to hear them. So leave that down in the comments. Anyway, see y'all. Like and subscribe. Comment your opinion. Good night.